Hi there, I'm Cash Peters. Welcome to the Life Quiz. You know how you just automatically like certain people? Stephen Colbert will be a good example, or Ellen DeGeneres. Somehow you can't help yourself. Well, that's how it is with my guest this week, Kitty Felde. Born in Compton, Los Angeles, Kitty started out as an actress. Then she became a journalist with her own public radio talk show on KPCC, and one of the best talk show hosts ever, by the way. She did that for 9 years until the show was wrenched from her hands in a sort of coup, after which she went to Washington, D.C. to be KPCC's political correspondent. When that gig ended, she launched a podcast, Book Club for Kids. But that's just a fraction of what she does. She also writes amazing plays. She makes and sells clothes. She's vibrant, enthusiastic, level-headed, smart as a whip too. Oh, and very fair. I love that about her. During our conversation, you'll hear how there's one very accomplished journalist that I don't care for very much. And yet Kitty goes out of her way to present this woman in the best possible light, despite the fact that when Kitty lost her talk show, she lost it to that exact same woman. Come on, you can't get kinder and more gracious than that. Also, Kitty talks about her various ups and downs, including the fear she had that she played a role in killing her mother. And of course, she answers the life quiz. 3 rounds of questions about life, living, and lessons learned. By the way, she's the only guest so far who's actually prepared and come with notes. Love Kitty Felde. And I think you will too. Enjoy.
Why are we here?
What's it all about?
What's the point of being alive?
What will be my legacy?
Where do we go after we die?
The Life Quiz.
The Life Quiz.
Secrets to a happy and fulfilled life revealed by the famous, the fascinating, or the just plain fabulous.
Hosted by Cash Peters.
Cash Peters.
The last time we met was in 2009. Now, not much
How do you remember that?
Because not much has gone on in my life since then, but your life has been a
stop.
tumult of activity.
Yes.
We parted with a certain amount of laughter.
Uh-huh.
Because we was commenting on how a guy called Rico, that we used to work with,
Yes.
had been given a podcast to stop him leaving the show we were on as a consolation prize.
Yeah.
And we were going, oh, my God, that poor guy. Poor Rico. They've given him a podcast.
I don't think management thought he had any on-air potential.
Right. He was smart enough. He was agreeable enough. I used to go in his little corner and he smelt of marijuana all the time. And he went, oh, really? Oh, and started to hide his jacket. So we were kind of laughing cruelly about the fact instead of getting an on-air job, he'd been given a silly little podcast to do. Now, his podcast is among the top 10 in the entire world, I believe. And we haven't got jobs. Well done, Rico.
Yes, we did well.
We love you, Rico.
Yes.
We do. Yeah, but you see, when we met at that time, I was saying goodbye to you because KPCC had just decided it was going to have this Washington bureau, and who better to man that show?
That was my idea.
Oh, was it really your idea?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they give you your idea and say, we're going to do it. We're going to fund it. I'm send you to Washington, and you'll be our reporter, editor, woman in Washington.
Yeah.
I have the press release from them, which goes, the job is perfect for me, Felde said. It gives me a chance to take KPCC listeners into the halls of Congress to witness the decisions being made that will affect Southern California for decades to come. What an exciting time to be in Washington. That's what you said.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It is. I'm still there. Yes.
But they closed it.
Well, they also closed Sacramento and LA City Hall and LA County.
Why are they doing that? Is it all about money again?
I don't know. They showed up, and they said, we're closing the Washington Bureau, effective immediately.
Was it some faceless bureaucrat?
No, it was the number 2 person at the station, and they flew in an HR person from Minnesota, and they gave me the news. But, psychologically, that was not as much of a blow as when I had the talk show, and the talk show was taken away.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was much more devastating to me. I thought I'd retire from that position.
Well, let me just say that not only did you win awards for this because you were brilliant, but you really were genuinely the best interviewer who ever interviewed me. And I've been interviewed many, many times. You were the best, without doubt, because you were selfless. And I wondered whether you had lost that job eventually because you weren't driven by ego and personality as such. You were driven by a need to inform, a desire to learn, and a selfless propulsion that allowed the guest to shine and put you second.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I'm not quite sure that I consciously ever thought any of that.
No, you had just a natural way. Your gift was phenomenal.
Well, no, here was the gift. I mean, I was not a journalist. I mean, that was not how I got in. This was not even on my radar screen. Yeah. And eventually did a lot of writing and was encouraged by an old actor boyfriend, that maybe I should be putting more emphasis in the writing than in the acting, which was actually good advice. It wasn't kind of painful at the time.
You're a terrible actor.
No, but I was kind of a lazy actor. I like being in front of an audience. I love performing. I love that interaction. It was the same thing with the talk show. I love doing improv because you didn't have to learn any lines. It's a magic thing to be, and I love rehearsing. But what I found was people feel comfortable enough with me to tell me stuff. So that translated well both as a reporter, because you could get sound bites, but even better in a talk show situation because you had a longer period of time to talk to people. And so I don't know that it was necessarily me being selfless as much as it was just listening. I can listen to people pretty well.
Yeah, you're a good listener, that's true. But also, one felt as a guest. I was a guest like twice, maybe 3 times.
Yeah. You're a good guest.
Well, only because I'm promoting a book, believe me, I'm super hilarious. But what your gift was, yes, listening, that's true, but also involvement. As a guest, you sensed that you were involved in the book, that you'd read it.
I did read all the books.
Right.
No, but the other thing is, I think because I'm a writer, I know what it takes to write a book. It's not something you can just do in your spare time. You really have to put your guts down, in the word process or whatever you're writing on. And I respect that. And so I would read 3 books a weekend. Luckily, I read fast and I like to read. So those were good things. But I really had, that was my weekend for however many years. That was 7 years, something like that.
Yeah,
Whatever
but
it was.
then,
9 years.
to do all that and then just get truncated.
Yeah. Oh, it was horrible because that's who I was. Then it was like, well, who the heck am I now? They gave me the wonderful title of special correspondent, which let me go out and report on just about anything I wanted to do.
Yeah, but that's what they do to people when they've ousted them from
And
the
they're
Today
getting ready
Show.
to get me
Anne Curry
forever.
was suddenly a special correspondent. She'd be sent to Afghanistan. Whether NBC ever hoped she would come back, I don't know. That would save us a lot of problems if she just got killed over there. But that's what they do when they farm you out.
Which is why I wanted to go to D.C. I felt like this was something important that we should be doing. We had brought the talk show out there for a week. And it was so interesting to me. And D.C. was so fascinating. It was the one city I'd really ever visited that I thought, I could live here. It's a very livable city. Of course, that wasn't in the middle of summer. So now I know better. But the city itself is manageably sized. People are smart. There's an energy about it. So I pitched it. I said, send me for 2 weeks and let me see what I can come up with that the network is not covering that would be of interest to our listeners here in Southern California. So they did. I came back with 40 stories. And they thought, oh, well, there's things that we aren't getting coverage on. And so, the head of the station who had taken me off the air got behind this idea that this was something important to do. And I'm proud of them for doing that. They sent me to D.C. and I was the bureau and I started from scratch. You've got 55 members of Congress. You don't even know what they look like. And you're in a room. It's hysterical. It's right off the Capitol Visitor Center, the CVC. They have this workspace that ostensibly was for broadcast, but as broadcast has shrunk and shrunk, you're sharing space with Politico and The Hill and Congressional Quarterly and Tax News Quarterly and Green Energy Hotline, all these weird publications. So there's all these people. So it's like this little club of odd ducks who end up in this particular room. And it was so nice to go back after I had been away for a few weeks. But when I walk in the room, it's like, hey, Kitty, how are you? It's like, oh, these people still love me. Yeah.
So therefore, when they close a bureau, they're not really just closing a bureau, they're just firing you, essentially, right?
Well, I don't know about
When they got rid of the
Yes.
job in LA
Yeah.
in 2009,
Yeah.
why did they do that?
I don't know the backstory, but they were really trying to boost ratings on the show, and the show was 1 to 3. Well, Los Angeles. People listen to radio when they're driving.
Right.
Who the heck is in their car from 1 to 3? They brought in Pat Morrison. Pat had more name recognition, mostly from her TV work on KCET. My assumption is that they brought her in thinking that that would boost ratings. It didn't.
Pat the Hat. She's this woman who is very smart and very well read and opinionated.
She's an
and stuff.
institution in the city, too.
She's called Pat the Hat because Pat Morrison, for some bizarre reason, has decided to wear hats all the time when she's on the television. Hats look terrible on television. They look terrible in real life, but they look really bad on television. So she would appear on television wearing the sort of hat that your great Aunt Matilda would wear to a wedding.
In Britain.
maybe in Britain. That was Pat the Hat.
But now you see, I like hats. I like hats a lot.
Yeah, but not
no,
on
wait.
television.
But I can't.
Kitty, it looks
No,
ridiculous.
but wait. She cornered the market, so I couldn't. That was her trademark.
In real life, it's fine.
Yeah.
You don't need to walk around a
on
radio
television,
station
you're
wearing
saying.
a hat. You look ridiculous. It's like Katie Couric reading the news wearing a sombrero.
But you remember who she was.
I saw her once at NPR walking around without a hat on. And she looks fine.
All right, let it go. Cash, let it go.
You think I'm getting too worked
I
up?
think you are.
I'm a bit flushed on the back of my neck. I'm so
He's
uptight.
turning purple right now.
But the point was, getting back to the point, that she took over your job when I don't think she was qualified to do so. And I thought, oh my God, this is such a bad decision. One should never underestimate the power of public radio officials to make really bad decisions. I've seen it many, many times. Completely the wrong people get promoted. And instead of just getting rid of them and saying, look, we made a mistake, this guy should never have been appointed, they go, we'll give him a better job. And they go up. And so incompetence goes up. I think there's a rule for this. Isn't it the Peter
Yes,
principle
Peter
or something?
principle.
Yeah, the worst people go up and the best people go out.
I don't think anybody really knows, and they go by their own personal taste. And maybe it's like, you remind me of my favorite cousin, Fred. I don't remember that psychologically in the front of
Fred
my
used
head.
to wear stupid hats.
Yeah, no,
I will
whatever
listen
it
to
is.
you.
But there's something about you that I like.
Right.
And so that's why I'm going to promote you. I don't know anybody who can judge what's going to be a hit or not.
Well, in my experience, they promote people who are most like themselves. They don't like anybody who is different to them.
Well, that cuts me out right there.
Well, yeah, that's why you're out of work.
That's right.
Nobody likes you, Kitty. No, but it's true. They promote people who are most like themselves.
Yeah, I worked in public broadcasting during the golden years of public radio, I think. There was a chance to try something and fail.
Right.
And I think that both public, especially public TV, but also public radio has gotten to a point where failure is not an option because it's more expensive to run the organization. It's become a corporation. It's become a business. When I got into it, it was like, Joe and Mary in the back garage.
It was shambolic.
It was terrible.
When I joined,
it was great.
It was like a bunch of hippies
Yeah.
in a back room in some really dingy digs. Mad people, angry people, people with a point, people who didn't have a point, people who had long hair, would get together and produce this show about business. And it was
They had
spectacular.
no business doing that because none of them were economists. None of them knew
I
anything
know,
about finance.
Nobody knew anything. But they did it incredibly well and with a visionary
Yeah.
zeal
Yes.
that produced this amazing
Yeah.
show.
And they had fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And this guy called David Brancaccio, who honestly, I love David Brancaccio. He was the guy who brought me into public radio, but he's also got a great voice. If you ever get a chance to listen to him, if you've never listened to Marketplace, hunt down David Brancaccio because he's amazing. And then it became a bit more corporate. Then people sold out this, and then it moved to a different city, and the head office became somewhere else. Then they got HR people, then they got hire people, then they got more managers, then they got more editors, managing editors, on and on, to the point where they couldn't take any risks anymore. It all became a thing, and when I finally left. Fired. When I finally left of my own volition, I was glad to leave.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the one thing that I was angry about during the talk show, not angry, but just disappointed, was I created this book club for middle school students because I'm passionate about kids lit. I always have been. And I felt like we weren't hearing those voices, those 5th grade to 9th graders. We're not hearing that age group. And I can remember being that age. And if an adult would treat me like a grown-up, I would tell them anything. And I found that worked really well. So you'd bring the kids in ostensibly to talk about the book of the month, and the conversations would take off and go off in all kinds of different directions. But you were hearing these authentic voices, and you were hearing about these kids' home lives and what their views of the world were and how we could fix it. And it was very encouraging as a grown-up to hear, we're in good hands here. This is good. But management didn't see a place for this on my talk show. I only did it half an hour once a month, but they said, well, why? And I said, well, this is our next generation of public radio listeners. And they said, oh, no, baby boomers are going to be around forever. There was no interest in building that next generation's interest in it.
Right.
So we moved the show to cable TV, LA 36, and it's still running in reruns. So now, like you, I'm going into podcasting because it's an area where there are no boundaries yet. The doors are open. So I can create this book club for kids as a podcast to try to attract this next generation of listeners.
Are you smiling on the outside and grieving horribly on the inside?
It's so odd. I feel like I'm free all of a sudden to really kind of remember who I am, I've been doing, public radio for 3 decades? That's a long time. But it wasn't what I always did. I mean, I freelanced for 8 years in the middle. I was an actor before that.
Well, you began as an actor, right?
I did. I loved that.
Well, that's a sign that you should probably have continued.
Yes and no, because once you hit 30, especially in this city, the parts start disappearing. And so that's what started happening. I was not old enough to be everybody's mom yet, but I was too old to be the best friend. So the work just started going away.
You strike me as somebody who lived out the New Age mantra.
What the hell is that?
Do what you love and the money will follow.
Yeah.
Follow your bliss. Live your passion. All those kind of things that people are constantly urged to do. And of all the people I know, you do seem to be that woman who did that. So my question is, how did that work out for you?
I'm glad I did it. Here's an example. So I'm going back to my alma mater, UC Irvine, tonight to moderate this alumni event. And I remembered that I was a social ecology major for 1 week. And I said to my folks after that first week, I said, I can't do this. I just can't do this. And I really want to be a theater major because I loved performance. And my mom said, you know what? Who cares what a BA is in? If you really want to be a lawyer, you'll go into law school. Or if you want to be in medicine, you go into that. Nobody cares what your BA is in. Do what you really want to do. I really had a lot of support from my family.
Were they telling you that because they never got around to doing it themselves?
Well, my mom wanted to have a large family because she was that woman of the 50s, 60s. You know, that's what you did. But she was college educated, first in her family. Brilliant woman. Way too smart. She was a school teacher. After her divorce, she went out and became an RN because it was something you could do with 2 years of schooling and make a lot of money. And she was this little 99-pound, 5'2" woman who could never find a vein. You know, she really didn't have any skills.
See, I wouldn't want her looking after me.
No, you wouldn't. But she found where she needed to be, which was she worked in the drug and alcohol rehab unit of the spinal cord injured at the VA hospital. It was the psych ward. You know what I mean? She didn't have to lift people. She didn't have to stick needles in. She just had to deal with people who were having mental issues, which, you know, it was a better fit for her.
Why was she having mental issues?
Well, I come from a long line of manic depressives, so, you know, that worked out really well.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah. My grandfather committed suicide. His sister committed suicide. His brother committed suicide. My mother was manic depressive. Her sister was manic depressive.
You were a candidate yourself.
Yeah. Genetically, it was like sitting out there. But I just luckily inherited my father's disposition, which is much more sanguine.
Why did your parents divorce?
I don't know. I think my mother was smarter than my father. I mean, my father was college educated and very smart and a great guy. But I think my mother was smarter and frustrated, you know, just I don't know what she wanted to do. But once she had committed to having children, that's what her identity was. Or maybe he was tired of the psych episodes. I don't know. You know, we don't talk about stuff like that.
You
We're
don't?
German. No, it's German Catholic. Come on, Irish Catholic. You don't talk about that.
Yeah, but as you get older, do you not get the urge to talk about it? I want to know. I want to find out what the deal
You're a
was.
searcher, and I'm just sort of
No, because there comes a point where you're all going to die.
Yeah.
And that will, as the older people die, you
Yeah.
never get to find the answers to these questions.
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
No, I don't. No.
In that kind of environment where you have two incredibly smart parents, smart parents, even though they would say to you, yeah, Kitty, go and be an actress, do whatever you want to do, the pressure would be on psychologically, I would have thought, for you to do something way more worthy than that.
Oh, of course. And my mother always assumed I would become a lawyer. Or better than that, I think my mother wanted me to move out of the house by the time I was 23. I literally was thrown out of the house by then because after college I went back home. You know, I was working at a real estate school and selling sheets at JCPenney. I mean, here I am, this college degree, and those were the kinds of jobs I could get. And finally, you know, she said, you know, it's time for you to move out, which I did, you know, but at the age of 23, it took that long.
But isn't that early experience slightly reflective of how you've been ever since? That you've got a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a lot of this over here, and you can win awards for this, but you've also got a play going on over here. It's like you've gone from being a river to being a delta. And you've got all these different things you can actually do. Because you also do, like, make dresses, like one-of-a-kind dresses.
I'm wearing
right?
my dress right now.
Did you make that jacket as well?
I did not. I actually purchased this jacket.
But that's a thing.
There's something about fabric, and it has nothing to do, most of my life is sitting in front of a laptop. And it's just the opposite. You know, you have things in your hands. I can't paint, but that's my way of painting.
Right.
And my 7-year-old niece who sends me pictures, "Dear Aunt Kitty, can you please make this dress for me?" Like, okay. You talked about this deluge. I was so overwhelmed with all of the possibilities of the things I could do. My theory was I'm going to do everything and see what resonates or what sticks.
Right.
If something is successful, I'll do that. So I went back to acting first. I got a new headshot, got cast in Vagina Monologues.
Didn't you try to get on Veep?
I'm right now just sent my picture and resume out to the casting director for House of Cards. Because both Veep and House of Cards are shot in D.C. And here's a surprise. They have characters who are over 50. Unlike L.A., all those parts go to the famous movie actresses who are getting into television. But in Washington, they have to have, I don't know if it's to get their tax credit or what, but they have to have a certain number of casting from the D.C. area.
But
And-
if I came to you and said, okay, I'm the casting director for House of Cards, you're in, Kitty, you're a part.
Yeah.
You wouldn't find that daunting.
No. Why would I find that daunting?
You're going to be on TV.
I've been on TV
But
acting.
acting.
Yeah, but so I've done it. So what? I will confess, I had my first equity audition in 100 years for Arena and Signature, 2 big-ass theaters, and I was nervous. And I don't get nervous very often, but I would literally, my hands were shaking.
Right.
And it was such a surprise to me, because I've forgotten. I hadn't had stage fright forever. But the difference between when I was 20 and now is if that had happened to me when I was in my 20s, I would have been devastated. Because that's mostly who I was. I was an actor. And now it's like I'm going back to acting because it's a joyful thing. And I'm 100 things besides being an actor. So, if I fail, oh well, there'll be another audition tomorrow. I'll try there.
But doesn't it water down your brand, though? If you're
What?
a little bit actor here, you're a little bit country here,
Yes,
you're
it's
a little
true.
bit clothes here, a little bit political.
Because I haven't figured out what the brand is yet. See, I'm giving myself this, I guess, discernment period.
Yeah, but I don't think it works that way. I think that you have to go, I have decided what my brand is, and I'm going to pursue it until something happens. If you go, you are welcome to take me on any level,
Yep.
and whatever you like most, I will be.
Okay.
That doesn't work.
But here's the
You've got to
thing.
be the thing you are supposed to
Yes, but here's the thing. Okay, I could say I'm going to be an actor.
be. And go for that.
Yes, no, I can. But the problem is you have to wait for someone to cast you in that. You know what I mean? I can write plays and send them out, and I have to wait for somebody to take them. Yeah, I just got to be a finalist in the Larry Neal writing you know what I mean? That's great. But I'm trying to do things that I have some kind of control over. So I'm doing the acting. I did all the things you need to do. And I'm in a fringe show, so I'm doing that. That's all there. There's not much else I can do to get myself work as an actor. There's not a whole lot of things I can do. Somebody else has to give me that job.
So is this about opportunity, passion, or money?
I think it's passion.
Not money.
I go back to that thing, Cash, that the money will follow.
Okay, that's what I believe. So here's my thing. I can give you today, say, hypothetically, $5 million. That'll see you through the next couple of years. You can live the life
It's
you
very
want.
generous of
I know.
you.
I'm a really giving person.
You are.
So for the next couple of years, you're going to be set up. You don't need to worry about money whatsoever. You can live the life you want in Washington, D.C. What do you do tomorrow?
I would do what I'm doing now. I really like the acting, so I'm still doing that. I got to put the time into the writing. I'm putting in several hours a day for the writing. That's, I realize that's
Given
what
how
I
much
need to
writing you've done. I mean, you've
It's
written
not that
200
much.
plays.
No, I haven't.
You've won awards. They've been presented everywhere.
Not enough. Not on big stages. I mean, what do they call mid-career playwright? You know what I mean? I'm not the hottest young thing. And there's so few new plays being done, and even fewer being done by women.
Actually, what's really funny is that I went to see a play written by an old editor of mine, somebody you know. I won't give her name because I'm embarrassed for her.
Oh.
And I took a friend and said, this woman, I've got great confidence in her. She's married to somebody very famous, and I will go and see her play. I went, and my friend was just mortified by how mediocre this thing was. She said, please tell me that the woman who wrote this is in her 70s. I said, no, she's kind of like in her 40s or something, I think. I'm not quite sure how old she is. And she said, it's one of the most dreadful things I've ever seen. And so we go outside and we're picking it apart, and people are coming out and they're going, oh, that wasn't very good, was it? Oh, well, that wasn't very... And of course I had to write and say, oh, you're so good.
No, you have to say, it was really interesting.
It was really interesting is the word you go for when you don't like it. And it just cemented my hatred of theatre. That I'm never happy when I'm in a theatre.
But there's magic that happens in theater. I mean, I was brought up on theater, and there's a communal thing that happens. And even if the audience isn't there and you're in a rehearsal, stuff happens. It's just a magical, safe place to be. And
You're
I
brought up in
miss that.
Compton. How can there possibly be a theatrical background in Compton?
Well, there was the Downey Community Theater not so far away. And I remember in third grade, one of the nuns let me put on a play. And all I can remember was a bit about squirrels or chipmunks or something like that. And we acted it out in the room, and then she was like looking at her clock, and I thought, oh, just like today, I have a hard time with endings. Some things never change.
Some things never change. All right, well, I'm done with you.
All right,
You've worn me
bye.
out. Would you like to sit the life quiz?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Or do you want to just go home?
No, I want to do the quiz.
Okay. It's time for the life quiz. 3 rounds of questions about life, living, and lessons learned with Kitty Felde, one of my favourite people of all time. Round 1 is an experience round. You've lived a while. This is my spiel. You've lived a while now. This is about what you've learned over the years about yourself, about life, and its meaning.
Okay.
But before we get there, there is one question I always ask everybody, which is, what's the number one lesson life has taught you?
You can't have too much fabric.
That's not true.
No,
you can have too
no,
much.
you
I could
cannot.
have too much fabric.
Well, maybe you could, but I can't.
What's the number one lesson life has taught you?
I think forgiveness is really important. And not for any kind of religious reason or for the other person. It's for yourself. And I'll give you 2 examples. One is when I covered the O.J. case, I sat in the courtroom behind Fred Goldman. And granted, I have never lost a child, to murder, particularly in that horrible way. But I watched him, and his whole life was about revenge. I mean, that's what you could do. It came off his body. And that is what the rest of his life will be about. Now, I don't know if he can ever forgive, but I don't want the rest of my life to be about that. And in my own life, losing the radio show, I
was going to mention that. I mean, you must be furious about that
I was
still.
furious, but do I want my life to be about being pissed off about losing a radio show? I mean, really? The rest of my life?
Forgiveness is a word, Kitty. It's not something that you can just do. I mean, I remember, this is an old story, but my brother told me I was dead. He sent me an email saying, I've lost respect for you or something, and as far as I'm concerned, you're dead. Something like that. 20 years ago.
Sorry. What did you do?
I have no idea. Never explained it. Just out of the blue. Around my birthday, it actually happened.
Charming.
I know. And I've forgiven him in the sense that just by lapsing of time, I could care less anymore. But for a very long time, I couldn't get over that. How do you get over when somebody has slighted you by giving your show, which was perfectly good and you were perfectly amazing, to pat the hat?
The 2 guys at the top were the ones who made that decision. And I was furious. I mean, I really was furious.
Did you storm into their office and yell?
No. I mean, it's like this most recent one. My husband says, well, what are you going to do if they fire you? And I said, oh, they're not going to fire me. And he says, well, what if they do? And I said, well, what am I going to do? Go, oh, no, please don't fire me. That's going to change things. It's the same thing. What am I going to go in their office and say, oh, no, please give me my show back. I'm so good at it. Come on. I just know. I mean, good Catholic girl, raised this way, et cetera, et cetera. I consciously, really and truly, I prayed about this. I did, about forgiving the guys who did this to me. Now, because I wasn't carrying around all of this anger and I was free to think about new things to do. I'm a big believer in one door opens, another one opens up. You just got to know where it is.
No, that's the wrong one.
Whatever
One door
shuts,
opens and another one opens up.
none of
That's
those
like
get-
greed.
Well,
You
that's
mean
what
one
happens
door
for me.
closes and another one opens
Well,
up?
it depends. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. But because of that, then I started thinking about what can I do next? They hadn't, at that point, cut me off from the station. They kept paying me a salary. They wanted me to do creative things. I came up with the idea for the DC Bureau. They were willing to listen. And who became the biggest advocate? The guy who took the darn talk show away from me. So I don't go out and have coffee with a guy. I don't sit around and name my first child after him. But I don't have to carry around all that anger. And
that is the key.
And that is the key. If I
I
don't
know.
have to do it, I'm the winner. It has nothing to do with them. They don't know if I've forgiven them or not. But I don't have to have my life revolve around them.
That's exactly how I feel. I remember when my TV show was cancelled, I was angry for several reasons. I just felt that people had sabotaged the show and it could have gone better, whatever. I mean, it's 10 years ago. Nothing matters about that anymore. But I remember what I did was I said, what am I actually angry about? What has annoyed me? Is it the cancellation? No. I was worn out. It would have killed me if I'd done another season. Do I care that I'm on television? No, I'm not angry about that. It doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I found it rather annoying. I didn't like being a celebrity. So what was it? And it was something that I realized was a life issue. It was spinelessness. It was the spineless way. It was all done. And once I'd got over that, once you assign yourself that kind of freedom,
And
you're
it is.
free.
Freedom is the key.
Yeah, you're free.
Yeah.
You forgive, you're done. It's
Yeah.
over. But if you go, that guy, I'm shaking my fist, that guy, if he'd only done this, if I'd only said this in that meeting, regret, guilt, shame, it will tear your body apart.
True.
I refuse to give in to that.
Right.
So you've forgiven Pat the Hat?
I don't think it was...
I haven't forgiven her.
The only thing I ever really was mad at Pat about was when I was trying to find out what was going on, and she didn't... Maybe she was constrained. I sent her an email asking what she knew, and she never got back to me, which that was a bit spineless. But let me just say...
Maybe she didn't get the email.
No, I think maybe management told her she couldn't talk to me, which is much more likely.
Which is even more spineless.
Well, not on her part. I mean, she could have
but
lost the show.
The whole spinelessness thing I hate. And it's so typical of the media, they can't say no. I invited a couple of people on this podcast, and they don't want to do it, but they don't want to say no. So it's called the Hollywood no, where you don't reply, and you let the other person infer that you're not interested.
Rather than just saying, just tell me honestly you're busy and don't want to do
what
this.
What am I going to do? Come and stab you? Kill your rabbit? No, just tell me you don't want to do it. I'll get somebody else. You're not that important to me, seriously.
There you go.
I agree. Forgiveness is a good one. So, okay, round one, experience round. Question one. Give me one major thing you would have done very differently or not done at all if you'd known how your life was going to turn out.
I wish that after the 94 earthquake that I had bought property in Santa Monica. Because I always wanted to live near the beach. I've always wanted to. And I'm never going to be in a position where I'm going to make that much money. But I knew, because people were moving out of Santa Monica like scared rabbits, and the prices dropped like crazy, I could have afforded to buy a condo in Santa Monica. And I didn't do it.
That's a practical, down-to-earth financial thing. Give me a personal thing that you would have done very differently. Would you have had kids?
No, that just doesn't call to me.
Well, what could it possibly
know.
be? Oh, come on. We all have 1,000 things we'd have done differently.
I wish I'd met my husband earlier. I got married old, so I really would like to have had more time with him.
Why was there nobody else? Were you just
I
too busy?
Dated a lot of actors.
Oh, really? Are they horrific actors?
No. Here's the thing. I mean, actors are all about themselves. Oh, this is why it was so funny going from acting to Capitol Hill, because in a lot of ways, the politicians have the same kind of personalities. Center of attention disease is what I always call it. They have to be in the spotlight. And every time you talk to them, it's about them. That's what the actors were like. And it was hard when I was acting and dating actors because there's a lot of professional competition going on. That was hard.
Who's dimmer? Senators or actors?
I think actors.
You don't think senators are quite dim, really? A lot of them are, right?
Yeah, but some aren't. I mean, Feinstein is sharp.
Some of them
as
are
a
really, really
tack.
sharp, I know, but some very, very
Boxer.
dim politicians, right?
There are some people who are not the smartest bulb in the box.
But they're just very persistent and very ambitious.
And they
so
look good on
make it.
camera. And they're on small states.
When you're on Veep, you're going to have to be able to say these things. You can't hold back.
I have a script. I get scripts.
Question 2. Nominate one characteristic about yourself that you would have changed if you could, which would have made you a better person to know.
I'm not patient. I drive badly. I drive impatiently.
Oh, you a honker?
No, but I drive too fast for my husband's taste. I don't like waiting in lines. I don't like waiting. I'm impatient.
See,
I'm a fast reader.
That's a bit of a princess quality. It
isn't that. It's just especially when I was working full time, I had little time, and I don't want someone wasting. I want to be able to use my time well. I'm very good at time management, and waiting in line was a waste of my time, unless I was doing 3 other things. I mean, thank God for smartphones. I am learning now, now that I have more time, what's the deal? You want to cut in front of me? Go ahead. I'm not going to win this car race. There's nothing in it to
that's
win.
Age.
Go
Age does
for it.
that
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Question 3. What's one lesson in life that you were once told was true, but which you found not to be true at all?
I was raised that you could do anything. I mean, I really was sort of told that. And it's a lie. I probably would have hit my head against the wall a whole lot less if I had realized some limitations. And these aren't bad things. Limitations can make you realize the things you do well. But for example, I grew up with the whole story about my mother being student body president in her college, or in high school or something like that. So I assumed that I could too. It never occurred to me that in the era in which I was living, girls were the vice president and the secretary. They were never the treasurer and they were never the president. So, I ran and got slam beaten, and it was just like, or I wanted to do play-by-play really bad. I wanted to be the next Vin Scully, which would have been a bad career idea because he's still working. But I have depth perception issues. Now, you can't be every fly ball looked like a home run to me. Bad career choice, Kitty. So that was a lie. But I think the counter side of that is, okay, you can't do everything. But that doesn't mean, A, you can't try. But the things you think are easy, maybe those are things other people think are hard, and maybe you should actually explore those things.
Well, I agree. It's a difference, again, between the river and the delta. Some people are rivers and some people are deltas, and you're a delta. But I just think, though, that somewhere in there is a prism that your parents set up. And even if it is a kind of, you can do anything, you can do this, there's a sense that Kitty is still trying on some level to be someone, to satisfy an expectation of somebody outside of herself.
I'm not sure it was my parents directly giving me that message as much as it was when I was born. I was the oldest, and I was the oldest for 2.5 years, and I was the center of the universe. And then my brother showed up. And it was like, what is this all about? And my entire life has been that center of attention, trying to get that spotlight back. So I think a lot of things I do, my need to be that center of attention person, comes from that. Because I was thinking about that. Why did I want to be an actor? Because I wanted to be in the spotlight, you know?
Right.
I wanted to be...
Like love me, though,
yeah.
right?
But
Why
I
is
had
that?
love from my parents. I have love from lots of people. That wasn't enough. I wanted to be famous.
But can you subscribe to a life without that?
Now, having left the radio station, in a lot of ways, I call it flying under the radar. In other words, you don't have to strive so hard.
You didn't have to strive at all in the first place.
Oh, I always thought I did.
You're wrong. You didn't need to.
If I wanted to be a famous actress, if I wanted to be Vince
Yeah, but you're
Scully,
not a famous actress. You're not Vince Scully.
Now I know that. But when I was
You
in
should have
my...
contacted me. I would have told you you're not a famous actress.
But see, that's the thing. I thought I could be all these things.
You see, to me, this is actually the flaw of American life. Not necessarily American life now, it's changed so much, but American life of your upbringing.
Yeah.
And so many of your generation that you could do anything, have anything.
And I think it was that post-war optimism. That people had.
And it was completely phony. And what they never told you was that you don't have to run around. And honestly, the number of times I've said this to different people, if you've heard the podcast, you've heard me say it, but you don't have to run around like a headless chicken trying to do everything,
Right.
get everything, own everything, be everything. You don't.
Yeah.
That's not what life is about. That's what the tribal mythology has laid upon you as an imperative. It's completely bogus. What you have to do is just be the best person that you are today. Shine your light as brightly as you can, and the rest of the world will come to you. And what is right for you will come to you.
Yeah.
So if you're a good person, a nice person, and you use your talents the best you can, and you work hard,
They'll
there's
take
nothing,
your talk show away from you.
they will give it to Pat the Hat. Yeah, Pat the Hat.
Stop.
Okay,
Let it go.
I forgive. She did nothing to me
She
ever,
did
by the way.
nothing to you. You
well,
just want her hats, I think, is the
she
real
offended
reason.
me with that stupid hat. I wrote into the TV station to complain. I actually sent a letter of complaint to the TV station.
You had all this spare time you're writing to reading.
And I complained about her, and I actually said, get that stupid woman. She looks like an
Let
ant.
it go, Cash. Cash, let it go. Let it go. It has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you.
I'm calm.
Okay.
I'm calm. Anyway, enough of all that. Question 4. Outside of things like family and friends, what has been the greatest joy of being alive?
I really like being in nature. I mean, I love like redwoods. I used to have this thing about redwoods. I being in redwoods, being at the beach. That gives me joy. Just being in touch with nature.
What do you feel inside of yourself when somebody tortures a forest?
When somebody torches,
A forest.
oh, it's terrible.
So that's an intellectual response.
But I don't know. I mean, if it were redwoods, I would feel really bad. Because, those things have been around for thousands of years. I mean, that's history. Think how many generations of human beings have experienced something with that tree.
And
that's
it's gone.
a tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah. Question 5. What is your greatest sadness or disappointment about the way life has unfolded for you?
Oh, let's see.
And I want a real answer here.
Well, I'll tell you, I think, quite frankly, it was my mother dying at such a young age. She died at 60. And
That is very young.
it's very young. She smoked. She tried to quit. I made a living as an actress for a period of time doing the Virginia Slims ads as the old-fashioned girl who got cut smoking. And I felt very guilty about that. And I talked to my mother about that. And she says, oh, come on. You never made me start smoking. I started smoking in college. But then, I probably have other people started smoking after her. So I do feel some regret.
So you were the model.
No, I wasn't. The ad had that gorgeous model.
Well,
Very
this is
70s.
before my time, don't forget.
it would take you back, usually turn of the century, and women who were being oppressed for various things. You've come a long way, baby, was the slogan. So they would show what happened to the woman who got caught smoking. So there was one like, I was caught and my father, and somebody's coming to elope with me, and when he catches me smoking, he's throwing me out the window to the geeky looking guy on the ladder. So it was all this series of, you get caught smoking, so you would do it under the wagon, or all these pictures. So you got to
So you were that woman?
I was in many of those. And it was a great gig. Richard Noble was the photographer, so they were beautifully shot.
To promote a killer habit.
Exactly. No, exactly. It was the most artistic thing I've ever done. Immoral, but I did it. And it was the most money I probably ever made.
But you see, that is the difference between us. I turned down a soap powder commercial because I actually was about to be given £250,000 to do this soap powder commercial back in Britain.
And what was wrong with the soap powder?
It made my clothes grey.
Oh.
And I would have to go for a year doing commercials saying it makes them whiter than white. And I said to the director, it doesn't. It makes them grey.
Yeah.
And I lost the commercial for that.
Wow.
But I would rather do something honest than immoral.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
How do you feel, though, now?
Yeah, I
that
don't
he'd
feel
actually
guilty.
killed your mother?
No, I don't feel that.
You didn't connect the link?
I did. I talked to my mother about this. She said it had nothing to do with her.
Yeah, but how weird,
I
how
know, isn't it,
ironic.
though? I know.
That's one of the most startling things you said.
Yeah.
So when your mother died, was it like resignation? Oh, well,
They diagnosed her with lung cancer. They did an operation. She had pneumonia, and then they found the tumor. And then they did an operation. And then they decided at this point they couldn't even do radiation, which actually was good, or chemo, because they don't do that generally with lung cancer. And they said, you've got 9 months to live, or 10 months to live. And my mother said, okay. She took her disability. She started having lunches with people, and she took 5 trips to Vegas. She loved to play craps.
Did she smoke all the way through that?
No. She stopped smoking after the pneumonia, but she really struggled with it for years. And it was actually, when we would travel together, it was really a pain in the butt because I can't stand the smell of cigarettes. And she would cough all night, it was just, or snore all night. It was really hard to travel with my mother.
What's very interesting was that generation didn't know, or maybe today's generation doesn't know, that you can clean out your lungs. The phlegm will come out. There is a belief that the phlegm stays in. Mm. And yes, it does if you do nothing and you just keep on smoking. But nowadays, you can actually just clean out your lungs. You can, the phlegm will all come out, along with everything else that's actually in your body. Wow. You can do that. I did a cleanse for 24 days. And what came out of me during that time...
I don't want to hear about it. I'm not good with medical stuff.
It's not medical.
It's not gross and disgusting and...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I don't want to hear it.
No, but it's in my book about the digestive system, which you've got to read.
I'm not going to look
It's
at
got
it.
photos of my poop,
Gross,
Kitty.
Gross.
Oh, my God. What is wrong with you people? So, question 6. If you had to pass on one piece of wisdom or advice to an impressionable child, what would it be?
I think it would be to travel. It opens you up in ways you can't imagine.
If every young person in America went around the world for a year before getting a job, nobody would vote Republican again.
Oh, stop. But the statistics...
No, I'm being absolutely serious, because you can only vote Republican, which is a party basically which offers you nothing. There's nothing in it for anybody in this country to vote Republican at all, unless you're incredibly rich.
I don't want to argue politics, but I want to come back to the travel thing in Americans.
I'm applying myself to your point, because they would have an expanded vision of what life was about. They'd see the world in a bigger context. They'd see what they were ruining by backing their oil pipelines and their Monsantos and all, and they would come back different people and they would vote Democrat.
You know the statistic that only 1 in 3 Americans has a passport? I mean, to me, that's shocking.
There are people who've never been outside their state.
Yeah, I know. And even just going to Washington, the culture is so different versus California.
Right.
I mean, I had to get rid of all my shoes. All the shoes I brought from California, I couldn't wear those on the Hill. There's an East Coast snobbery. There's a real East Coast thing. It's mellowed since, but when I was coming into a situation where I didn't know anybody and I was trying to learn things and you get yelled at, it was like being in Catholic school because you kept doing things you didn't know were wrong and the Capitol Police would yell at you, the ushers would yell at you. I got yelled at more there than I did in high school.
Wow.
So you try to learn the rules, written and unwritten. And one of them was, quite frankly, dress codes. The only people who dress in colors that are other than red, white, and blue are the California delegation. They dare to wear a tan-colored suit. Oh, my God, how shocking that is. But it's different. It's a different group of people from California, particularly versus the East Coast crowd.
Good one. Okay, question 7. Why do you think you were put on the planet? And are you satisfied that you've justified your time here? I don't think you have.
I don't
you
think
are.
so, because I would probably just sit around and sew and watch Miss Fisher mysteries over and over again if I were satisfied. I think the writing has always been the thing that I have been meant to do, because I've always been a writer in one way or another.
Has everything sort of taken you away from that and brought you back to it?
Well, I
again?
think it's always tangential. The journalism was writing. It was just a different kind of writing. The acting led me into playwriting. So I think it's always sort of been there in the peripherals.
But for a woman who says, love me, love me, love me, and,
Yeah.
and craves that in a way, you choose the ephemeral all the time. You choose stuff like a play, which it comes and it goes, and it has to be like local, because you've got to go and see it if you're in the area. You can't.
You're saying books are going to go away?
I think books are going to go away, but they will exist in ebook form for a long time.
Yeah.
People will still be able to read them.
Yeah.
But
What's permanent? That's the question. You're even talking about the redwoods going up in flames. What is permanent?
This is true, but I'm not talking about temporary or permanent. I'm talking about ephemeral. For a woman who wants to put a notch in the bedpost of posterity, you've chosen ephemeral things. Journalism is over and done with the moment you've reported the facts. A TV show comes and goes, I guess. Why have you not focused and become the river rather than the delta and said, okay, posterity, here I come?
I don't know that anything is permanent, though.
George Clooney might possibly be permanent in terms of his legacy, but
and I'm
you...
not sure that I'm on this legacy. You talked about going through life without a plan. And I'm one of those people, too. There's some people who do. They have point A,
But it's
point
based
B,
on
they want to be...
faith. I have faith.
That you're going to get someplace, to be led to where you're going to go.
Yes.
I do, too. And I feel like this is the spiritual side, but I feel like I don't have to drive the car. I just have to get in it and close the door.
Yeah, but what I'm saying about you is, given everything you've said about your motivations for doing things and your needs, I would have thought not being famous or not being celebrated on a big scale would be incredibly disappointing to you.
No, because you know what I've discovered, and it was OJ that did this. It's like you have that TV experience where suddenly people come up to you in the grocery store and all that kind of stuff. It's really weird.
It's horrible. I got trapped in Whole Foods between people with two baskets, and I couldn't get away. I was trying to buy cacao nibs or something, and I couldn't get away.
But see, that's the choice. Okay, is that what I want? And to have everything I wear, everywhere I go, I would be criticized for the clothing I wear. Or do I want people to come up to me in the hallways of the crappy congressional office building and say, oh my God, you're Kitty Felde. I remember you when we talked about this. And, I just find that one-on-one much more valuable than being recognized at the grocery store, But I've had to come this far to learn it. In my first life, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be that famous person. But once I had a small taste of it, no thank you.
It was horrible.
You want to eat your chocolate nibs in peace.
I do. I want to buy them without people looking over my shoulder and saying,
and judging you.
Oh, I went to Romania too. I don't care if you went to Romania. Just get away from me. But I think there's something to that. And I think that with maturity, hopefully, comes a slow divorcing from ego needs in favor of the interpersonal. And also,
that's what matters.
Well, of recognizing your gifts.
Yes.
The sooner you can acknowledge what your gifts are and what brings you joy and practice that, the sooner you will find that elusive happiness and wholeness you're looking for. So why are you trying to be these other things? Have you not celebrated the ephemeral rather than the enduring?
Maybe so. I sort of look at this period right now, the Delta period, as trying to figure out which way to go. And the one thing that really has, besides the writing, that has really resonated with me has been this book club. I just really enjoy talking with that age group, and here's my opportunity to do it. And I think it's a good idea, both because I believe in literature and I believe that these voices need to be heard. And it's something I can get passionate about that isn't about me. It's something I can really work on. It has to be done.
Okay, so that ties in with question 8, which is sort of redundant at this point, about what is your legacy? When your biography is written, what will it say you did to make the world a better place?
That's always so funny. It's better than saying what's in your obituary, which will always be the dumbest thing you ever did. You know what I mean? Or it's
well, it'll be what you're known for.
Correct.
And I don't think that necessarily is your legacy.
Question to ask about
your
legacy
is something else entirely. I mean, for instance, mine is probably my believing book, I would have said. Not because it's a book, but because that seems to have affected most people's lives and touched them in ways that I could never have planned for.
One of my plays is, I covered war crimes After OJ, I didn't want to do OJ 2. And when I was doing OJ, the court TV people kept bragging that they were going to Europe to cover this new International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. And it was the first time since Nuremberg that basically the international community had held somebody responsible for individual crimes. And everybody kept calling OJ the trial of the century. And I kept thinking, no, over there in Europe, that's the trial of the century. So I got myself over there and covered it. And one of the stories there, it was this 25-year-old kid. He looked like any hipster you've ever seen in your life, who confessed to shooting, as he put it, no more than 70 of the 1,200 people who were killed in a cornfield one particular afternoon. And he says, I didn't want to do it. And they told me that either you'll do it or we'll shoot you. And then we're going back to the village and killing your wife and child. How could we not, all of us, ask ourselves, there but for the grace of God, go me, what would I do? So I kept telling this story, and Americans are like, I don't know, I don't even know where Bosnia is, I don't speak the language. So I wrote it as a play. That play has been done on college campuses. It's had a professional production as well, but it's been mostly done on high school and college campuses. And somebody told me the other day, they came to see a production of it, and they brought their son with them, and he was young in those days, maybe he was middle school. That kid is now in international law because of that play.
Wow, how wonderful.
So if you want to talk legacy, to me that was a real tangible, that's something I felt passionate about and I felt was important to talk about. It's affected another generation.
People say to me, if you've just affected one person, your life has been worthwhile. If you've affected them positively, life has been worthwhile. I go, oh, okay, that seems rather feeble to me. I wanted to affect millions, really.
Yes.
Do you buy into that?
I do, only because it's that pebble in the pond. You don't know where that's going to go. I mean, just think about, if you say one kind word to somebody, you don't know, that may have been the day they needed to hear that, and that will give them the courage to do something else. You know what I mean? And they will pass it on to somebody else. You don't know what the effect you will have on other people. All I know is that for me, something that moved me and I felt it was important to talk about, maybe someday that will help affect not having another one of these happen. That's my hope. How do you prevent neighbor turning against neighbor overnight and slaughtering each other? How do you do that?
Yeah, but you see it in America happening right now.
And
this is what disturbs me about the Nazi thing, and we go through World War II, and you go, well, how could all these ordinary German, Austrian people suddenly become these mini tyrants and kill their own people and kill millions of Jewish people? How could they do that? And then you see it happening again now with little things, it's tiny, 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 and you see it growing, and it won't. And now they're talking about kill the faggots. Really?
Yeah.
How did we get to here from there in the matter of 2 years?
Yeah, but I think that's the power of storytelling. Rather than it being this ephemeral them, and, if you get involved in a movie, on the radio, with a character, with a person, you know their story, you have a relationship with that person, it changes people. And I just feel like storytelling is the way to do that.
But do you feel that we are going back to something that happened and we've forgotten the lessons learned? Or is this the last struggling, demonic manifestation of the old guard?
No, I think it just repeats every generation because people forget.
So you think there's going to be like unnecessary deaths and racism and homophobia for years?
It doesn't mean we should give up and say, oh yeah, then we're going to stop doing that. I don't think so. But I just think that we're people and, we're selfish.
And dim.
And dim.
Question 9. In what way are you still searching?
Tell me what that means.
Do you feel complete?
Pretty complete. I mean, I have body issues like, all women in America do.
I didn't mean that. Do you feel whole?
I do.
Why? Nobody else does. Why you?
No, I don't know. I'm not perfect. I still have what I call my toad days, when I just feel like I just want to crawl under a rock and people just leave me alone and don't, I have nothing to say in my writing. I can't write anyway.
No, but
my plays are garbage.
I don't really mean this, though. I mean, where are you exploring life with a view to understanding its...
I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
You don't do any of that?
No,
Why
I don't.
not?
I hated philosophy class. I didn't like any of that stuff because it's up here in my head. And I'm much more interested in people's stories. And maybe I will learn things along the way from other people, but it's not like I'm like, I want to sit down with Cash because he's going to teach me the secret of the universe. I don't have a plan like that.
But you don't ask questions?
I do, but what difference does it make? Nobody's going to hand me the book that says, this is the meaning of life.
I can give you one. I've written it.
Well, then I'll have to read it.
I will give you one when you leave.
All right.
It's called Why Your Life Matters.
Okay.
And it will change your life.
All right. Well, then we'll have to ask this question next time.
Okay. I don't normally let people sidestep them.
Well, I don't have a way to answer that one, though.
You're the first person I've ever come across who's not still searching.
I told you I was weird.
You're not weird. You're just a journalist. Question 10. What, in your view, is the bigger purpose of life? Why are we here? You don't know the answer to
All right,
that,
I'll
then.
give you my answer for this. And again, don't cringe. I feel like we're the hands of God. I know that sounds so corny, but I just feel like there's things we can do. You talked about touching people. They just think there's things we can do. It's so funny when you give people a compliment, people light up. And you can always find something nice to say to somebody. There's something about them that you like. You can see. It's like you're magic. You have magic in your hands. You can change this person's day. You see them taller. They smile. It's just a gift. I mean, we can maybe do big stuff, too. We can fight for civil rights, or, we can stop the war in Bosnia or whatever. But I think on the micro level, we every day have an opportunity to touch people's lives and to change the world in that one little pebble in the pond thing.
And that's why we're here as a human
I think
race?
so. I think so, because I think, there are problems. We have an imperfect world, and we can either sit around and bitch and moan about it, or we can try to do something.
Yeah, but I'm talking more seminal than that. I'm talking fundamentally, why are we here? What is the purpose of our existence on this planet?
I don't know.
Oh, Kitty, come
I don't know.
on.
I really don't have an
If you
answer
had
to
not
that.
been brought up in a religion, I could understand that this is something you've never addressed. But the fact that you actually have a religious origin in your life means that these questions have circulated.
My religious answer is we are the fingers of God. There are things that need to be done.
And God is...
And God doesn't sit down and do stuff anymore.
Do you see God as a man in the sky?
No. I used to have a fairly irreverent relationship with God, and it's like, this is a guy who has really poor timing and a very twisted sense of humor. This is sort of my vision of who God is, because it never happens when you want it to happen. And there's always kind of an irony that's there. It's like I can hear the laughter. I can just hear the laughter.
Yeah, nothing is ever straightforward.
No, and it's like that's who, in my own experience, because it fits my personality, that's who my vision of God is. I think it's completely different for everybody else. It isn't a person.
But the flaw comes in being separate from it. When people talk about God and he and
Or she, or whatever it is.
Yeah, but that invokes a sense of separation from this divine intelligence of which we are a part.
I agree.
And so we are manifestations of divine intelligence. There's no guy there like a puppeteer manipulating this,
No.
but we are physical manifestations of a divine presence.
Exactly, which is we're the fingers of God.
Therefore, why did this divine intelligence, which permeates everything throughout the entire universe and is part of us and part of everything, why did it orchestrate things in such a way that we ended up here with a mission?
I don't know that if I look at the larger universe, I think it's pretty self-aggrandizing to think that we're it.
No, I'm not saying we're it. I'm
No,
just saying
I'm
we're
just
a part of it, and we actually
are,
obviously
but
have a reason
so are
for being
people
here.
on some planet that I can't even name in a different galaxy. But whatever they are, whatever creatures they are, whatever
Beings.
whatever they are, we're all part of that. I just think it's pretty. We're pretty full of ourselves to think that it's all about us and our mission here. We're part of it all. What is the dung beetle's mission? It's to push dung along in the desert.
Yeah, but then something eats that dung, and
we die. And we go back to fertilizer.
would you like me to explain why we're here, Kitty?
Yes, would you
it
like
help
to tell
you?
me? I don't worry about it. I'm just telling you. I'm back. I'm really
So you don't really
frustrating
want to know?
you. Well, you can tell
No,
me.
I'm telling you. Okay,
to
that's
read
it
the
for
book.
round. No, you can read my book. It's in there. You'll never reach the end of it, I know, but it's actually in there. I'm exhausted. This is the end of round one. We got 2 more rounds to go. Unbelievably, luckily they're
Listen, I
short.
got to be at UC Irvine tonight at some point.
You won't be. Cancel it. Luckily, these are short rounds, and we'll be back in a second for round 2.
The Life Quiz is brought to you by Penner Press, a boutique publisher with a global mission to expand minds and change lives. Penner Press publishes books that the big boys would never dare, including 2 of Cash Peter's most popular works, A Little Book About Believing and Why Your Life Matters, available as ebooks and in paperback. The future is being made right now, so check out books by Penners today and dare to start living the bold, bright, healthy new life you know you deserve. Penner Press. Now, back to the Life Quiz.
Round 2. Do I sound really, really flat and lifeless? This woman has worn
Worn
me
you
out. Kitty Felde is here on the Live Quiz. This is round 2. There are 15 questions in this round. You get to choose 5 of them to answer without knowing what they are. So it's random numbers that you will choose, not based on having heard the podcast and knowing
Well, I was
what
going to
the
ask, you
numbers
switch
are.
these around, don't you? You switch
Yes,
it-
Kitty, I do.
So it doesn't matter what number I pick.
No, but weirdly, everybody asks the same.
I noticed that. They all pick odd numbers.
They all go for the same questions. There's about 7 questions in here that have never been asked.
Can I have those?
Well, if you pick on them. Give me a number between 1 and 15.
All right, I have to start with 13 because that's my lucky number.
Question 13. Are you a beacon or a light reflected?
I'm a beacon. Being a light reflected is boring. Come on, lead the parade.
And where are you leading the parade
I don't
to?
know that. But we'll have a good time getting there. I promise that much.
So this parade is going nowhere, but you're leading it.
You've
into
driven
a
with
ravine.
me before.
We're going into
Chavez Ravine would be fine.
We're going into an abyss led by Kitty Felde.
Yes.
Really? That's it? You're a beacon, but you don't know where you're going.
I don't have a mission statement.
But if people come to you and go, guide me.
I will listen to what they have to say and I'll offer advice. Yeah, and people do that a lot. So I'm always willing to do that. But I'm not going to, say, Cash, let's go. We're going to start a revolution over here.
You're a very, very dim beacon.
I am a very dim beacon.
your light is not
I'm
shining
an old
at all.
Lighthouse.
An old lighthouse.
With a lot of fog.
Give me another number between 1 and 15.
All right, 2.
What's your greatest weakness or vice?
With chocolate. I have a sweet tooth. It's terrible. I'm, pre-diabetic. Not me, but everybody in my family is, either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And it's like, can I stop eating chocolate? No. Can I stop eating dessert? No.
You probably have candida. I've written a book about that too. You probably have candida.
Okay.
If you have a sweet tooth, usually it's because you have candida.
Okay.
And if you deal with that...
But I like chocolate.
I love chocolate too, but I know that I had candida and so I can't have it. Give me another question between 1 and 15.
Number 6.
If you were abandoned in the wilderness, would you survive or would we never see you again?
I think I'd survive. I was a Girl Scout. I can start fires, remember?
Could you start a fire now?
Yeah.
I mean, not now, but
Yeah.
I mean... please-
I've not rubbed sticks together, but I have done the flinting thing, where you rub the... Yeah, the problem is I can't remember which rocks are the ones that cause the sparks. So that could be a problem. But I do like sushi, so I could eat raw fish. One of my summers at Girl Scout camp was survival camp, where you had to lash things together, and they had one night where you had to go out and catch your food and stuff. You had to make pine needle tea, which is the worst crap imaginable. So I think I could do it. It depends on how long. And I'm a good walker. I can walk for miles and miles. So as long as I have decent shoes.
On my show, I got dumped in the wilderness for one of the episodes, and I came to the conclusion I would just wither and perish within moments. Just through a lack...
Wait a minute. Those shows always crack me up because it's you and the camera crew. What's the camera crew doing? Are they eating their trail
Yeah, but you've
mix?
never met these people. They wouldn't help me. A couple of times they just drove off in the car and left me there.
But nobody filmed you. What's the purpose? If you're not being filmed,
They
it's
left
not
an
television.
automatic camera behind.
Oh.
Like I was in a village in Kenya shooting the one with the Maasai, and they just drive away back to the hotel, and I'm lying on a bed of cow dung. With an automatic camera just shooting me because they've gone. And I'm so exhausted at the end of a day of doing this that I just fall asleep on this cow dung. And I see the video back of me, and there are things crawling in my mouth and centipedes over my eyelids and things going up my nose and they're crawling in my hair. And I'm just sleeping through the whole thing. I have 8 hours sleep.
And you really regret doing that show?
I wholly regret doing it. I've often had this conversation that if there were like a red button and a green button, and I had a choice to press them again, I'd press the red button for stop. I would never, ever agree to do that thing. Anyway, another one, please. Another number.
Oh, let's see, another even number. How about number 10?
Miraculously, a genie appears and grants you 3 wishes. Anything is now possible. What would they be? And you can't ask for more wishes, obviously.
Well,
Number 1.
I would like to be in a film with Colin Firth. Where I would be
To
playing
hell with
romantically,
healing world hunger. To hell with solving the poverty problem.
That's right.
Why?
Because I'm,
You're kind of hot for Colin Firth?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, come on. I'm an American girl.
So does my accent turn you on?
Yes, of course.
You're such an easy lay, Kitty.
No, my husband and I have agreements. We get a pass. He gets a pass if Scarlett Johansson makes a pass at him.
Which is unlikely, let's face it.
Well, I get the same thing for Colin Firth.
So if Colin Firth were here, your husband would let you shag him?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
You have an open marriage as far as Colin Firth goes?
Only you get it's a one-timer. Yeah, yeah.
Wish number 2.
Let's see. I really would like to be in Australia right now and see the Miss Fisher costume dramas, and I'd like to go see them filming the Miss Fisher mysteries, because this is my current obsession. It's an Australian mystery drama based on the books by Carrie Greenwood, which are wonderful. And it's set in 1929 Melbourne, and she wears the most fabulous clothes. She sleeps with every leading man who comes on the show. So it's kind of reverse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
So
she
you'd
solves
be in
mysteries.
that?
I would love to be in that. Yeah, I would love to be in that.
Stranger things have happened.
All right. I would love
All right,
to do
number 3
that.
then.
I have a lot of friends who are really sick, and I would really like to, I would like them to get better.
And what are they sick with?
Cancer, mostly.
Right. And you know Dr. Cash could solve that problem.
There we go.
Well, I'm not really a doctor.
I know.
I just play one on the podcast. But if they have cancer, why do you not give them my book?
Well, I guess I will, won't I? Okay.
Every time I hear about somebody dying with cancer and they're not reading my book,
All right,
I go,
all right.
What are you thinking? Read this. And
That's my parting gift, right?
oh my God, I've got to give you an entire catalogue of books. Okay, last question in this round, thankfully. Give me another number.
Oh, I have to come up with a number. 4.
This is very appropriate, actually, for a journalist. In a very murky world, what gives you hope?
I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to come up with something specific. I'm surprised sometimes when people just do the right thing. I don't know why I'm surprised, but that's what gives me hope.
That enough people might do the right thing.
Yeah. People are basically good. I mean, underneath it all or whatever is there, it's just sometimes we forget. At times when people don't have to do the extra mile or don't have to put themselves out there or don't have to be nice to somebody, oftentimes they do. And you find that traveling, I think, especially.
Oh, yes. I
People are
thought most people are generally nice.
very kind, and just generous. They don't have to do that for me. They don't have to be nice to me. And that gives me hope that underneath it all, it's there.
Okay, that's the end of... I don't know how many numbers we've done, but I'm kind of done. So that's the end of round 2, and we only got round 3 left, and thank goodness for that. We'll be back in a second. Hi guys, it's Cash. I heard background music playing, so I thought I'd pop in and just mention about donating to our website. If you enjoy this podcast, I know it's free, you don't have to pay for it, that's part of the deal. But it does cost money to run, so if you're in the mood and you have a bit of spare change, why not go to thelifequiz.net? That's our website, thelifequiz.net, and just click on the donate button there. Give money to your heart's content, and when you think you've given enough, give more. It's good for you. We're always incredibly grateful for contributions, and people have been giving, and that's so nice of you. We really appreciate it. But if you haven't given, or if you have given and you think you'd just like to give again because it's so great, by all means do so. Thelifequiz.net, click on the donate button and give what you can. Now back to the Life Quiz with Kitty Felde. All right, we're back for round 3, the wrap-up round, 3 questions, and we'll be soon done. Question 1, you're rushed to the hospital. Doctors say you have 48 hours left to live. What would you do in those 48 hours that you've not done so far?
Oh, that I haven't done so far. I was thinking about things I'd like to do again. Well, I'd have to see my family. I'm going to have to say goodbye to everybody. That would have to be...
And how big's your family now?
It's pretty big. All my brothers are around, and nieces and nephews. It's a bunch of people. But most of them live in Southern California, and, Okay, then I would, because I'd be on the West Coast, you see, I would probably go to Hawaii.
To die?
Yeah. Or Prince Edward Island is the other place I really, really love. I've been there 3 times before, and it's just magical places. Or the Redwoods. I would go to a beautiful place.
Why
and
would you
hike
not
and
live
walk
there
and swim.
now?
It wouldn't be as magical living there. PEI is pretty cold in the wintertime. It wouldn't be very fun to be there. And Hawaii can get boring as hell, I'm not sure I want to live there forever.
That is the problem, isn't it? It's like these tropical islands.
Yeah.
I've been to a tropical island.
Yeah.
And everybody goes on about, if I would just retire to a tropical island, you would hate it.
Well, may I just point out that where did President Obama decide he wanted to have his presidential library? Not in Hawaii.
In Chicago,
Yeah,
right?
because things happen in Chicago.
Yeah, that is a point. I mean, I dream of moving out of LA to somewhere like Central California, somewhere where...
I've lived in Central California. It's boring. I mean, it's beautiful. It's great. I live in Oceano, Pismo Beach area. It's gorgeous.
I was going to get to the word boring. You just beat me
sorry.
to the post.
But you get it. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, and I in my head,
Yeah.
I fantasize about big rugged cliffs and stormy seas and rain and seasons, and then I just know that give me like 3 months of it and I'll be back here in like a shot. Question 2. What do you consider to be a universal truth?
Universal truth. Can I look at my notes?
No.
Damn.
You made notes about this.
I
can't
did.
believe you actually made notes.
Because I
Go on, what do you
look at
write?
these. Here they are.
Instead of this long empty silence, what did you put on your piece of
I
paper?
don't remember. What did I put? What was the question again?
Question
Nothing.
2. What do you consider to be a universal truth?
Well, I already told you about forgiveness. I think that's important.
That's not a universal truth, though.
Yeah.
What goes around comes around as a universal truth.
No.
It is.
No, all right. At heart, people are basically good. I really do believe that. I mean, I do think people are going down rabbit holes and people do very self-destructive things and can be very cruel. But I think underneath it all, people are basically pretty good.
2 words. Dick Cheney.
I said basically.
But he's the Darth Vader of
But
our
he's
age.
probably very nice to his dog. Come on. There's probably something nice about the man.
Great to your dog, horrible to your country. Come on, really.
He didn't really shoot that man
Dick Cheney, when he was president, he
when he was president.
he ruined this country.
That has nothing to do with him as a human being. I said, for the most part.
So there are evil people.
I think there are people who do really bad stuff. But on the whole, most human beings have they all have the potential for good.
Okay, question 3. Last question. Who are you really?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a short, blonde-haired girl who likes to talk to people and can sometimes put words together correctly, is kind of funny, pleasant to be around. I don't know. I don't know how you answer that. And I think you're different to everybody.
It's interesting that you didn't go down the child of God route.
Well, that's so corny. My religion is not, it's more casual. I don't think of myself as a child of God. It's just, that sounds like something out of a can. That just sounds so goofy.
But you don't see yourself in religious or spiritual terms, then?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I feel like my religious practice and my spirituality is part of who I am, but I don't know that that's what I would say first. It's just part of how I was raised. It helps me make sense of the world. The rules help me cope with the way the world is.
But when you look in the mirror, do you only see the physical?
Yeah.
You don't see beyond that? Mm-mm. So you've never experienced the witness within?
I don't know what that means.
Wow, Kitty.
I don't know what that means.
You've got to come back to California.
I know.
You're lost over there.
I know.
I'm going to give
It's
you a
the
book
60s.
today.
Yes, and I have
It's
to
like
read
a prescription
it, don't
from a doctor. I'm going to give you a book,
All right.
and I want you to read it.
I'll read it on the plane.
You're a fast reader.
Yes.
You can get to the end of it.
Okay. And I'll give you a book report.
But it'll answer all the questions you
Okay.
couldn't answer here.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. You're a darling.
Thanks for having me.
Was I not right? She's so great. Again, check out Kitty Felde's new podcast, Book Club for Kids, especially if you're a kid. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a great week, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.